We're really looking forward to this presentation. This is a project that has been a labor of love for both of our organizations in partnership. So really excited to share all about this really exciting project. So we started this relationship, I guess, a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer ago, with Neil. And Neil came to us with a really specific problem that he wanted solved. And the bigger thing about it was that Neil was also looking for a partnership and a long-term relationship, because he knew that there was going to be other things that were going to come into the pipeline that would also need similar applications to support. So we started working together and we started to develop this project. So we started out looking at what are the objectives we have here. And the objectives that we have here for this particular simulation, and this was particular around supporting a device that treats AFib, or an irregular rhythm within the heart, through an ablation technique. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But really, what Neil was looking for was something that was going to help give his people a common language. So today we're going to explore that. We're going to talk about how we used a simulation to accurately describe the steps of a procedure. We're going to talk about the process that we used to develop this simulation. And then we're going to talk about some of the challenges we faced along the way as a learning. So we really look forward to digging into some of this content with you. So Neil came to us with a challenge, and when he came to us, I mean, he physically came to us. He brought four, I think, is it four, Neil? 4 giant boxes with him. Yeah. So these boxes, if you can imagine something larger than an airline checked bag, I would say, and probably much heavier. He brought them into our office and he said, we have this silicone heart, and it's great when you want to do end-to-end process, but it's not so great when there's an anomaly in the anatomy of a patient or something goes wrong with a step, and how do we troubleshoot? And these big boxes, as you can imagine, they're not that easy to ship. You know, you have to have FedEx scheduled them. Gosh, what if the FedEx hub in Tennessee, where Tim lives, is got thunderstorms and their planes didn't take off and your stuff didn't arrive, and you've got surgeons waiting for you and a room assigned, and you have nothing to present with. Also, I remember Neil even saying sometimes you get this giant kit, there's actually a problem with it, you can't do the simulation. Not only that, the expense of shipping them, the physical movement of them is not all that easy. So that was one challenge, was the portability of the system, plus only one person could have it at a time. So it wasn't scalable. That's part of the problem. The other thing that he was looking to do was to create something where learners could practice, you know, that abnormal anatomy, unique cases, maybe a larger than average vein, and how to proceed if the standard procedure fails. That was a big piece of it. And obviously that common language among the reps working with their healthcare providers helps, in the end, the patient get better care. So this was really important to Medtronic to develop something that was scalable. That model he had was cost prohibitive, cumbersome. So a digital training solution to deploy this particular technique was really important to develop that language, consistency, terminology, best practices, again, patient safety being the ultimate goal. So that's what we started out with as the challenge. And, you know, tipping point, challenge accepted. We love these interesting solve for X scenarios. So we engaged our team. We sat down for probably a full day with Neil and his team, working through these different procedures, and came up with a solution that we felt was really going to be the most portable, the most scalable, because the other thing Neil said was, Medtronic is going to buy another solution very soon. We need to be able to add that to this very seamlessly. So what we came out with was that Medtronic really needed an iPad application and a simulation where learners would learn step-by-step lesson how to deploy this particular cryoablation tool. This thing would be very portable, fits in the pocket of a carry-on bag versus FedEx and almost, a cargo load of items. We would use the iPad's touchscreen capabilities so learners can interact with the simulation. This is critical to physically performing the steps as they manipulate the device controls and work with the different monitors and the interfaces you see here. So in this interface, you have the ability to see the heart, the device, the balloon, and the monitors, as well as the external piece of the device. This 3D interactive heart model really gave learners a firsthand look at how the pieces of the cryo balloon device interact with the inner mechanisms of that heart. It allows you to see different views of the heart. It allows the angles to be changed. You can see the fluoroscopy. And it really simulates what an HCP sees in the operating room. These various monitors and interfaces are what are used to monitor the patient and the procedure as the cryo console is administering the coolant and performing that cryoablation procedure. And it's really critical that you make sure that it goes correctly so that the patient's symptoms can be relieved. They have a better quality of life. The simulation also allows that touchscreen input of the tapping and sliding to make it feel as real as possible. And it's also really engaging. Another piece of it was that it's something that could be done in active mode or inactive mode. So they can do the procedure or they can simply watch it as a video mode. Again, another tool that can also be used to show healthcare providers and be used as a resource to them. So that's the solution that we came up with. And then actually delivering that solution was a process that we have been working through. And interestingly enough, with Neil and his team, we are actually on right now working through the second set of simulations for a new product that Medtronic has recently got FDA clearance on. So we're very excited about that one as well. And I'm going to show a brief video, kind of overview of this, and then Neil is going to jump in and tell you more about it. So this video shows the project that TPM and Medtronic have developed. It's an app that's designed to, again, train healthcare providers and sales reps on how to perform basic cryo balloon ablation procedures to create a scenario where sales reps are more comfortable with the steps of the procedure, especially if there's a troubleshooting that needs to occur. The app is really unique, as you can see here, in the ability of it to provide information and feedback to a wide audience of learners, giving them that hands-on. So you can see here a simulation of someone changing the view of it, and Neil can jump in here too. He's the expert on all of these different views, but this is where you're changing the view of the heart. Now at the bottom, you can actually see the exterior features of the device. As you move it forward, the console changes over and you're able to see the actual cryo console that's administering the coolant into the heart.
Yeah. Pretty good, Elena. I think we trained you well, right? So, I definitely will say one of the things that but most people won't appreciate with the way that it's concisely viewed and the user interface that was developed here is that there is a capital piece of equipment that's involved. There is several disposable demo product pieces that need to be in play just to have this experience in person in the lab. So what you're seeing is the consolidation of all those pieces from capital to all the way through the disposable items that would also incur shipping costs of their own, in addition to just shipping the model that we would use them in. So those are all things that obviously this application has really helped us kind of substitute those things and be much more mobile and agile when it comes to this training concept. So.
And your reps are appreciating less wear and tear on their bodies.
Right. My team especially. I think you were very kind in saying that those cases were on the heavy side for airline check. I think that they would probably refuse it flat out and ask us
Yeah.
to go via freight and ship them to the locations that we were looking to do that with. Sure.
So as we continue, this video is just showing more of the different process that the reps can go through in their understanding of the procedure as the balloon is deployed and the coolant is delivered to the specific area, targeting it most correctly to manage the fibrillation. All right. So we'll continue to the next slide.
Okay.
And I will hand it over to Neil.
All right, thanks, Elena. I think one of the things that you kind of encapsulated is we came to you for an alternative solution to what we currently had as our standard of practice with respect to training our field organization as well as our customers. And for the better part of 10 years, that solution was really effective and you know, a way that we were able to get to the level of success we've seen with the technology to date over a 10-year period of time. But as we continued to grow, we needed to kind of develop newer options to be more agile, to be more responsive to customer needs, as well as the needs of our growing field organization as well. So the scalability and ease of access was really a key important challenge that we needed to meet with this collaborative project. And with that, the opportunity to then not only use what we currently use in terms of the silicone heart model, but also augment that with much more mobile solutions that now take that level of learning when we do get them in front of the physical model to a different level, because now that they have exposure to some of the basic concepts that they would need to be almost accelerating the learning curve, they have that opportunity with this application. The static models that were mentioned were not only cumbersome, but were quite physically demanding to get in place. The venues that we would select sometimes, particularly with respect to training our field organization, required kind of a lot of forethought and planning in terms of scheduling those locations. And also having ability to access you know, X-ray pieces of equipment that normally, as you would imagine, there takes a lot of planning to get that implemented safely and effectively for the experience to be meaningful for the learner. So those are one of the things that we really wanted to do. Is it's a static model. We wanted to be able to kind of take those out of the equation and really focus in on the concepts that were being really taught using those models in a way that is user-friendly. A lot of our field representatives that join the company are out there you know, supporting customers on a daily basis, and sometimes you know, finding a way and a place to get these models into was more of a complicated matter than we would like it to be. And so offering them a mobile solution that, you know, they already had iPads in place as part of their field equipment that they use on a daily basis, it only made sense that we utilize this platform to deliver some of the training that we like to do on a much more continuous basis, not just episodically that we would use with our traditional model.
There's also a nice version control too with the
right,
iPad. Yeah, sorry to jump in, but yeah, there's a nice version control with that. You can push out updates and things like that, and you know everybody's using the same one.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to your point, we're already working with you again at Tipping Point to do the version 2.0 with this application that expands not only this particular ablation platform, but another one that we just recently received FDA clearance for. So the kind of ease of use is really kind of spotlighted in the fact that we just push out an update and our field will have the instant access to this moving forward. But one of the other values of this is that we also had this application with our customers in mind, knowing that our field will not only see value in teaching themselves the kind of the language of being able to coach a physician and customer through this procedure, but also showing them using this very same platform what they would do in a dynamic in-service setting. So this was one thing that we also wanted to make sure that it could be double purposed, not only for an internal facing tool, training tool, but also from an external facing training tool. So we wanted to make sure that was the case. In typical situations when we're training our field or customers to this procedure, it does involve some case observation, and with that, the concerns with having to set out 60 to 90 minutes of your day to sit through a truncated procedure is not always the most realistic of situations, particularly for our customers. And so we wanted to make sure that the experience that we were delivering here with Tipping Point was going to enable a much more efficient use of time and kind of limit the seat time to get through the fundamental concepts that really would optimize both safety and efficacy benefits of our procedure. And then the free play aspect of things, I alluded to it just a few minutes ago about using X-ray equipment and the ability to kind of pan and use different views to understand how our ablation equipment sits within the heart. You can do that with this application. And so we essentially eliminated the need for fluoroscopy for specific aspects of this training, based upon that. And it's something that's become really valuable and kind of really emphasizing some of the key elements in terms of coaching people through this procedure through. You can go next slide. So I think, as you saw through the quick video, the simulation elements, the 3D heart model is really what allows people the opportunity to see how the equipment is positioned. In most situations, you don't have the luxury of seeing the physical equipment within the heart. So we use cartoon modeling, and the folks over at Tipping Point Media did a phenomenal job in taking what we gave them and reproducing that from a modeling perspective, and being able to really give back what we were looking for to get the optimal environment to show how our pieces of equipment interact with the anatomy of the heart. The other things that you saw as well is the pulling in of different monitors and really points of view that are very important and critical for folks within our field organization, as well as others from an external customer training standpoint, the need to focus in on those items. So intracardiac monitors that are used during the procedure and showing certain electrical signals during the ablation are pulled into this. Kind of visual representations of our actual capital piece of equipment that is a huge console that is like a very small refrigerator that sits there, is able to be pulled into this all off your iPad, and again allows the opportunity to see that without having to have a physical cryo console within your setting, to be able to understand the interactions that are required of that part of the system. And lastly, the lower portion, that lower third panel, where you see the individual pieces of equipment, it allows you to not have to have the physical demo pieces in hand to understand how they interact with each other. And so my team spent one full day at Tipping Point Media's office and essentially training their team how we train them. And they took that and took fabulous notes and really designing a unique interface that allows our field and our customers to understand how the system works together to get the best results clinically. You can go next slide. So as we went out and started to see the beta versions of this application, we went through a couple different rounds of review and collaboration. The first group of which was my team of field education specialists within Medtronic Cardiac Ablation Solutions, had the opportunity to give it its really sniff test of whether or not it met all the needs in terms of what we typically do on a one-on-one basis with the existing silicone heart models that we had in place. We wanted to make sure that it adhered to everything that we look to teach on a regular basis, not only to ourselves and our internal teams, but also to our external customers as well. So it had to resonate well with both of those audiences. And my team was the first group that was able to really go through that due diligence process and give their stamp of approval to it. The second group is we went to a smaller group of, we had the opportunity to interact with some fellow physicians, EP fellow physicians, and showcase this application with them, where they, just purely from a physician and customer training standpoint, gave their feedback on how well they felt comfortable moving forward to the procedure. So we use this in conjunction with our silicone heart model. But we use this as a precursory look to accelerating the learning curve via the physical means of our silicone heart model, and it was well received there. Third group was a much larger customer base, and also along with those customers, a large contingent of our field organization was there as well. and in which case, again, the reviews and the feedback we received there was critical in getting us to the finish line as we got things going and getting it available via our internal application store for our iPads and our field use and consumption. The things that we wanted to make sure that we understood from each of these collaborators and stakeholders is how usable was the app, was the interface clear and easy to understand and work through, how complete was it from basic concepts to the couple of the scenarios that we selected that would be the most common areas where you would want a little bit more information beyond your basics. So did we pick the right scenarios? That was one of the things that we wanted to do. And is this usable, platform? Is this one that you could foresee yourself using as the introductory tool in terms of learning the procedure? To which we received very positive feedback to it. I think our field organization has leveraged this in a way not only to kind of keep their skills up, but also use that with new customers in a way that's dynamic and able to be done on a much more fluid basis, given the mobile nature of it. And then how does it compare to the previous models with the Silicon Heart? I think one of the things that we've learned is that we've been able to use the Silicon Heart model better because we've accelerated the initial learning curve in terms of the basic concepts that needed to be conveyed. And we get to go and talk about more complex topics and concepts using the Silicon Heart model, where we don't have to go through the rudimentary areas that are covered with the application.
Oops, went too far.
Well, you wouldn't break my heart if you skip through the regulatory review process. This is one of the bigger challenges that I think organizationally that we had to plan for and account for. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was to keep us within the confines of compliance within our organization at Medtronic. We wanted to make sure that we leveraged already approved materials. We wanted to be sure that there was a clear claims matrix that we were operating under. And with that, we were able to kind of provide detailed storyboards to them so that they were very clear as to our objectives with what we wanted to accomplish with the application, down to the very words that are then spoken and narrated via the application. They had all that visible to them. And what we really made a point to do is engage them early and often. From the very start of the concept, we started talking to them about what are the timelines that we needed to accomplish in terms of review cycle, and what do we need to do from an IT compliance standpoint. So there's a lot of different steps here, but early and often is probably the best advice I could give anyone that wants to take up a novel way to train their field using a mobile solution like this. There's a lot of things that you have to be mindful of, and with FDA kind of mandating labeling and indication, we needed to make sure that we were on the right track and considering those things along the way.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things we didn't put in here was that we started this project well before COVID hit, and once it did hit, the fact that we were already in regulatory review with it made it a really sweet piece for you guys to help keep your field staff moving forward through that.
It was perfect timing. I can tell you that much. We weren't able to do things in person, and we truly leveraged the application, particularly over the past year and a half, onboarding new folks, using it to deliver virtual instruction to a lot of folks as we had to pivot to those things during the kind of the pandemic. So it was perfectly timed, but again, it spoke to why we want to do in the first place is to provide a scalable option for training for both our field and customers.
Yeah.
So in terms of the feedback, I think I've shared with you already that the feedback has been truly positive. I think one of the things that it clearly jumps out at me in the interactions that I've had with our field organization has really been the fact that they love the fact that they don't have to schedule a room, and they can do this and even share their iPad screens via Zoom and things of that nature as well, where it does really make an agile learning platform available to them. The way that it's laid out, the scenarios build upon each other, where you start with a basic, most fundamental scenario, and then you go to some of the more trickier scenarios in which our field organization was often not at the same level of proficiency in being able to articulate that. And as we really set ourselves out there, we wanted to create a common language, as Elena pointed out in the offset here, to be able to at least come up with your fundamental language that you knew is rooted in experience over the X number of cases that we've covered over the past 10 years of this technology's existence. And it's done a phenomenal job in continuing that momentum for us. Obviously, I think the metrics speak for themselves. The cost savings in terms of not having to reach out to Medtronic internal supplies for demo product, not having to schedule the same levels of time in our dedicated ORs for training internally. Those are all things, and to be able to push this out on a global scale where we can again share access to this application, speak to it. The visuals are great. I think the free play element where you're able to rotate the 3D model of the heart is one that automatically sets off light bulbs for many folks as they are able to see how their minute movements result in different positioning areas within the heart. So I think it was perfectly timed, as you mentioned already, Elena, that with COVID happening, we were in complete position to take complete momentum of this and be ready for whatever it was that we had to encounter about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as future considerations are concerned, I think I'll start here and then I'll let you jump in here, Elena.
Yeah, we have 1 minute left.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that we've always talked about with Tipping Point was the ability to kind of then expand upon the platform. We also bounced around ideas of how we could leverage this basic platform and then implement the use of wearable devices as well down the line, as well as expanding out the library of products that we would want to also include in this application. So those are all things that we talked about and are still currently working with Tipping Point Media and making this a true relationship and going to not just the second iteration, but the third and fourth ones as well. So you have to have that longitudinal mindset moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that we developed it in Unity with 3D modeling, you can actually take some of these assets that are in this and use them in virtual reality and augmented reality. If you want to go to a trade show booth with them and do some sort of exploration there or finesse it for other tools, it's already built. So there's a really nice economy of scale to that. Outside that, we've just really enjoyed this project so much, and working with Neil and his team. They're really passionate about caring for their patients, and it shows in their work, and it makes us proud to be able to support that as well.